Good morning, everybody, to today's EUROSCOLA here live from the hemicycle of the Strasbourgian European Parliament. A warm welcome to everybody who made it here today, also to all the teachers who came with you, and of course a warm welcome to everybody watching us online and following this morning session here of EUROSCOLA. Thank you so much. My name is Annette Gerlach, and I'm delighted to be your red line today during this session, and this together with my beloved colleague Sven Seckert.
Hello and good morning, everybody. The pleasure is all mine, Annette. Today we are addressing you together on behalf of the European Parliament. And dear students, dear teachers, on this very special day, you will have the chance to discover this house of debate, to exchange your ideas with exciting guests and discuss a variety of topics.
Exactly, and our key speaker today will be a Vice President of the European Parliament, Dimitros Papadimoulis. He is looking forward to discussing with you all topics you are interested in and you have already prepared.
And afterwards, you will have the opportunity to meet Henry Wesung. He is working with the Secretariat of the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality of the European Parliament. And you will discuss the following crucial topic chosen for today's session: a Europe of equal opportunities, the European Parliament's defense of women's rights and gender equality. Annette and I will be switching languages throughout the discussion. We'll speak in French, English, and German, but don't worry, there are our wonderful simultaneous interpreters. And on top of that, you can also express yourself in Spanish or Italian. And please note that today, because we have a Greek vice president present, you can also express yourself in Greek. I know we have many schools here today, many students from Greece, so that's your opportunity to express yourself also in your own language. Forward. And please use the headphones in front of you, they're on your desk, if you need the interpretation into the languages that I just explained.
Thank you so much, Sven. And das mal gleich zu testen,
to just test this out.
Juste pour voir, voilà, si vos
And now I'll be speaking in French to see if your headset is working. You can select the different languages. And now I take this opportunity to speak in French, to quote the great Italian thinker, Umberto Eco.
Impression?
It was the test for the Greek, yeah.
Absolutely. And so the quote, la citation que j'aimerais.
And the quote that I would like to share with you is from the great Italian thinker. He said, "The language of Europe is translation."
Can't do this with our wonderful interpreters, as just Sven said, and I propose we give them first a big round of applause, because it's thanks to them that we can talk to each other. The EUROSCOLA program is a flagship of the European programs and an initiative for the youth. It's a priority for the European Parliament because you are the future of Europe, of course. And now I give the floor, first for some introductory words, to the President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Roberta Metsola. Here she is.
Dear friends, welcome to the European Parliament. It is a pleasure to be with you. People who care about Europe, who understand its value, and who dedicate time and energy to making it better. EUROSCOLA is part of our democracy. It is an opportunity to share ideas with other young people from across the European Union, the United Kingdom, and candidate countries. We speak different languages, have different points of view. We have different cultures, traditions, and priorities. We may not always agree on every issue, but what we fundamentally agree on is the necessity to debate, to listen, and to respect all sides. This is precisely what democracy is all about, and ultimately where our true strength lies. With the uncertainties that the Russian war on Ukraine has brought, we are living through a rapidly changing world. Europe must be able to adapt and respond. Europe needs a new generation of champions. It needs people like you to help it become greener, fairer, more digital, and more united in the face of adversity. let me reassure you that you are not alone. You have the support of the European institutions. You have the support of the European Parliament. The best proof of this is that you are here today. Some of you have already started bringing important change in your communities by advocating on the issues that matter to you. Perhaps you are involved in NGO activities, raising awareness in your inner circle, or dedicating time to learning and keeping up to date with the news. This is the motivation that we need and must foster. The 2024 elections are fast approaching in Europe, and for many of you, this will be your first chance to vote. You are the generation that will inherit the consequences of the choices we make. Do not let others decide your future. In our Europe, it is the size of your ideas, the strength of your arguments, and the firmness of your conviction that matter. Not your age, not your background, not the geographical size or the location of your country. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. Europe will only survive if we fight for it, if we listen, if we vote, and convince our friends and family to vote too. That is why your civic engagement must not stop here. Continue to stand up for what you believe in, for what Europe stands for. Stay engaged and join our Together.eu community, because ultimately the future of Europe depends also on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this welcoming message, dear President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola. Today, 57 schools and about 1,725 participants here in the hemicycle and in front of their screens online are actively participating. You're from 25 EU member states, the United Kingdom and Serbia. And you students represent the most important part today, of course, because this event is yours.
Absolutely. I think we break a record today in terms of participation. And now directly it is time to welcome our Vice President of the European Parliament. It's quite a big honor for us that he takes time to discuss with you and to exchange. Let's first meet him in pictures.
L'onorevole Papadimoulis. Στη δημοκρατία, οι πολίτες αποφασίζουν.
Good morning.
Here he is.
Yeah, here is Mr. Dimitrios Papadimoulis. Good morning. Welcome here to today's EUROSCOLA program. Kalimera. And Dimitrios Papadimoulis is a Greek politician, and he was first elected to the European Parliament in 2004. After one term in the European Parliament, he changed to national politics in Greece in 2009. And in 2014, he returned to the European Parliament and has since been Vice President. Mr. Papadimoulis is a member of the group of the European United Left, Nordic Green Left, in the European Parliament, which brings together Europe's parties from the left wing. Mr. Papadimoulis, good morning. Thank you for being here with us today. We are very lucky to have you with us, considering the topic of today's program. You are an advocate for the European Parliament's ambitions related to gender equality. Dear Vice President, now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bonjour. Είναι η πρώτη φορά που ενημερώνομαι ότι μπορώ να μιλήσω και στη μητρική μου γλώσσα, στα ελληνικά. Σας καλωσορίζω όλες και όλους. Είμαι θερμός υποστηρικτής του προγράμματος EUROSCOLA και έχω μιλήσει δεκάδες φορές σε δεκάδες χιλιάδες νέους από όλη την Ευρώπη και είναι χαρά μου που λίγες εβδομάδες πριν ολοκληρωθεί η τρίτη και τελευταία μου θητεία στο Ευρωπαϊκό Κοινοβούλιο
It is a pleasure for me to be able to address you in my mother tongue and also be able to answer all your questions. As our President Roberta Metsola said, the European Union is based on democracy and dialogue, and I look forward to this dialogue for the next few minutes. There are no questions that are prohibited, and we want your contribution, your critique, your participation. In just a few weeks, we will have elections in the European Union. And my message is the following. I invite you to participate and convince others to participate. Do not let others to decide on your behalf, to define your future. With your participation, you can contribute to building a better Europe. My second observation is the following. For the past 10 years, I have been elected Vice President of the European Parliament for 4 consecutive terms, with percentages as high as 75%. I consider this to be an honor and a trust that is shown for me personally and also my team, but my country as well. Greece, one of the smaller countries in the European Parliament. I have decided to not run for another term because I firmly believe in the need to give way to the younger generations. I want the younger generations to leave their own imprint and their own vision for what the next steps of the European Union should be. I firmly believe that if the European Union wants to be more effective in tackling and fulfilling the expectations of all European citizens, and even more so the young people, it must deepen the integration. It must not only be a unified market, but also a unified project. And if we want to be able to stand in the competition with the US and China, we must reinforce and strengthen our tools. We must have more money in our common fund in the European budget in order to be able to do more about the climate, about employment, about reducing inequalities, having a better public education and health system. And also to be able to tackle the challenges of the present and the future, such as climate change, which is worsening year by year. And also the challenges of the future, digitalization, artificial intelligence. All this cannot be tackled by a European Union that will not be a diplomatic giant, but a diplomatic dwarf. And of course, the biggest dilemma, peace or war. We have 2 wars in Ukraine and in Gaza. European Union must be more active in initiatives for peace and not the generalization of war, which is a nightmare perspective. We have built the European Union step by step for the past 60 years as a project of peace, democracy and social progress. If we want it to continue to walk in that direction, we must move faster, we must be more effective, we must strengthen our internal democracy and give more space and voice to the next generation, and even more so yours, which is entering the political stage right now. I will stop now. I do not want to monopolize the microphone. I want us to have time for dialogue. I am here to answer your questions. I cannot promise I have all the answers, but I do promise to give honest answers to all questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimitros Papadimoulis, for these first passionate words about Europe. So you understand, Mr. Papadimoulis is here for 10 years, so he knows nearly everything about this complex construct who is the European Union and the European Parliament. And you also understood that he will give his place away so somebody younger can represent Greece here in the hemicycle. I think this is a brilliant idea. But of course, we will miss you once you will leave. So now it's the moment for you, dear students, to ask 20 years. I'm just get corrected. I thought I heard 10 years, but it's 20 years in the European Parliament.
Between 2009 and 14.
And there was a break.
It is actually in the European Parliament 15 years. Overall record, 20 years in the European Union.
Incredible. So really, he knows everything. So this is the moment for you, not only to ask questions about our specific topic, about gender, of course you can also, but about everything you always wanted to know from a European parliamentarian. So you know how it works. We will work with Slido. So you can ask, especially for the people watching online, there is another possibility. Also, you just ask your questions on slido.com, and we can read them here. You, of course, here in the hemicycle, you raise your hand, and we will give you the word. And do not hesitate to like the questions of your peers, everything was written on slido.com, so we will know what is the most interesting question in your regard. Whatever matters to you beyond the topic of the day, you can ask your questions to Mr. Papadimoulis.
Absolutely. And for online schools, don't forget to raise your hand on Interactio. That's your tool, so we can get you here in the hemicycle. We show you here on the screen, and you get to ask your question directly to the Vice President. And yes, of course, naturally, here in the hemicycle, you can also ask questions. So let's see who wants to start.
Let's start. Just raise your hand. Who is the first one who dares to ask a question? I can see a hand in 101. So the rule is always the same. Please stand up. The microphone, will go on automatically. You don't have to do anything. And please introduce yourself and your country just before you ask your question. Thank you so much. Yes?
The pleasure is mine. My name is Adriana Ulah, and I'm from Bulgaria. So my question is more like an ask for help. My country is doing nothing about that matter. And a few days ago, in my city, started the renovation of our center. Downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So the next step is for 50 healthy trees to be cut down. Those trees do not disturb anyone. All experts are saying that this should not happen, but the city council and the mayor, Yordan Yordanov, have made a decision. They will kill 50 linden trees that are perfectly healthy. That way they will achieve an European vision.
It's a climate question, so you're afraid about the trees getting cut in your city, right?
Yeah, there's permission for removing only 18 trees, but the landscape architects are saying that even those shouldn't be removed. A citizens' initiative committee filed a lawsuit against the crime, but the Supreme Court ruled that the citizens were not parties on the lawsuit. But the...
Excuse me, I should interrupt you. It is a very specific question. I think we got the idea. You ask what Europe can do to help to maintain climate rules, etc., and actions for environment in your country, Bulgaria, right?
More like in my city, Dobrich, because they're going to kill those trees that do not disturb anybody.
I understand very well. Thank you so much to be concerned by your city. You're totally right. But let's see what Mr. Papadimoulis can tell you about what Europe maybe can do to help a little city who want to protect their trees. Mr. Papadimoulis, the word is yours.
First of all, I am very pleased that our young friend from Bulgaria is so much interested to the protection of the trees, of the environment, and these trees produce oxygen. And it's something that I believe trees shouldn't be cut. just as simple as that, if there is no serious reason. I do understand that in your city there is a reaction of the citizens because of the decision of the local authorities to cut some trees. My advice and my contribution is activate, contact other people that have similar understanding with you. Try to slow down the decision of this ongoing decision of the local authorities and use as well the tribunals, as you mentioned. Inform and sensibilize members of the European Parliament so that they can talk about it in the EU Commission. And we have as well a committee where each citizen or each NGO can address if he estimates that local authorities does something wrong or gives an insufficient solution to a local problem. So you can use all these tools, but if you want to protect the climate and the environment, I believe you have to activate other citizens. Often local authorities or national authorities or even European authorities are not perfect. They do mistakes, they make one-way decisions. I will inform my colleagues from Bulgaria what happens in your city called Dovets, and I would like to congratulate you because you are so much interested in environmental subjects, and I thank you because you had the courage to ask the first question. Thank you.
Network more, find people who have the same preoccupation that you, mobilize yourself and ask Europe also for help. We go for the next question, Sven.
I saw 264 raising the hand quite early as well.
Yes, wonderful. The mic will get red. Now
yeah.
You can talk.
You can introduce yourself,
Hi.
where you're from.
Hello, I'm Aurimas Beniusius. I am from Lithuania. I have a question about the future of the education. What are your plans and what do you plan to do? Another question would be another topic. And do you think the artificial intelligence is dangerous for the people? And that would be it. Thank you.
Education
so we
and
have...
KI.
Ευχαριστώ για τις ερωτήσεις.
Thank you for your questions. Both of them are very interesting questions. Unfortunately, for education, the European Union, and most citizens are not aware of it, did not decide to have a reinforced European cooperation. We don't have a goal for European common education policy. Each state has its own policies on education, and I believe if we would like to have a more united and a more efficient Europe, we would need to reinforce European cooperation step by step in order to come to a common European policy for education. And the same thing should be done for health, because there's no common European policy for health. We had COVID, and that obliged us to cooperate. Till then, each country had its own way by itself. And there are many inequalities and differences from one country to another. So I do believe that it is an important goal for the new generation to request more united and better Europe in the sector of education. More European programs like Erasmus and EUROSCOLA, but as well as common policies and guidelines for the whole European Union that will use the best practices, achievements that have been in Finland, for example, for public education that is much more advanced than some other member states of the European Union. To the other subject, artificial intelligence. You ask a very critical question. Indeed, this new technology will change everything on the way we produce, in the way we work, in the way we organize information, and we gather information. And there are also dangers of personal data of the citizens, abuse of power, and maybe abuse of protection of the citizens' private lives. It is a new technology that we must have a framework in order to avoid to suffer from the dangers, but benefit from the advantages of the technology. There is a possibility that we can gain and win as a society under the condition that we limit the dangers. Technology can help us to have new tools to be able to have a better income, work less time and with better conditions. But technology can also change jobs that humans become a bad paid machine that serves machines. We're humans, so we have to find a way to the challenge of the technical approach of the artificial intelligence, find new rules, clear rules, in order to avoid abuse of this big new power that could be used only for the advantage, or maybe big and powerful could be very big companies that master the technology, or governments that are authoritarian and that can use it to impose different methods to be non-democratic. So I think we should become better than the workers that estimated during the revolution of the industrial area that machines were an enemy. But we should use the technology in order to be able to become better and have better results for the humans, for the civilization, and for everybody else. Long time ago, machine and industrial revolution allowed to humans to request to work less and be paid better. This is an opportunity that we can use artificial intelligence under the condition now, before it starts, that we will create a framework of legislation that will protect citizens. A few weeks ago in the European Parliament, we voted for such a package, but I believe we are still in the beginning, because the new generation asks crucial questions that will be important for us in the future. Thank you very much.
And it is risk and potential at the same time. This is artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. And we got the word that we have our first school from online, Interactio. So please take the floor. The school is from Spain. It's the school Bella Guarda de Altea. Let's see if we can get
Spain,
them here.
can you hear us? We would love to see you on screen.
Hello,
Yes.
you're in the hemicycle in Strasbourg right
Hello,
now. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Maria Termo Morales from IES Guarda, Altea, Spain. And my question is, what can we young people do to achieve a more egalitarian and equitable Europe?
Wonderful. Okay, so Mr. Papadimoulis, what do you think about it?
Σας ευχαριστώ για την
Thank you for your question, because it touches a sector where I am competent and responsible in the European Parliament. The last 10 years, with a common decision, I am responsible of the working group for the efforts in order to achieve equality of genders and fighting against discrimination within the European Parliament. And within these 10 years, I'm very proud to say that with common decisions that I decided and that have been approved and voted for the European Parliament, we have improved equality a lot. For example, in management of the European Parliament, in directors, 50% are women. In the different directions, 51% are women. And for general directors, when I was starting, it was less than 17%, and now it's 40%. On the level of the political decision, citizens decide. I wanted to say, with the elections of 2019, citizens sent from the 705 members of parliament, a very big percentage of women to the parliament, and my proposal is increase the percentage that was 40% in the elections of 2024 to become more. Once we agree that women are half of the population, they should be half of the representatives of the republic. So it's the citizen that decides. But on the other hand, in order to have equality, we need to understand that the enlarging disequality of men and women in the participation on high-ranking officials, on payment, there's no equal payment for equal work. Women are generally paid less. For the very low-paid working temporary jobs, there are much more women and they're very bad paid. So if we want this to change, men as well have to change their way of acting, and we have to understand that reinforcing equality, everybody will win.
Και μια Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση και μια Ισπανία, γιατί από την Ισπανία ήρθε η ερώτηση.
We will have a European Union that is more democratic and, of course, a more democratic Spain, because our question came from Spain, which will promote meritocracy regardless gender. However, to attain this goal, women must also demand the right to equality. They must not rest on what they have already achieved, but always strive for more. There are other places in the world where the situation is more dire in what refers to equality. And then, amongst men, there must be a large-scale effort for a change in mentality. We must leave stereotypes of the past behind, stereotypes that wrongly consider men to be stronger than women. And we must understand that gender equality is a win-win situation. This is the challenge that lies ahead. And my suggestion is you women must continue trying, and we men must leave behind ideas of the past. Thank you.
To a man saying things like this, thank you so much, and a man who is not only young, I mean in spirit of course, so I think it's great that we have people who think like him. We will make, because we have only 25 minutes more, we'll make a little bit quicker right now. We will take 3 questions in a row. So question number 1 will be 152, please. Okay, your mic will get red. Here we go.
Yeah. There you go.
Καλημέρα. Ονομάζομαι Παρασκευά Φρυδερίκη και είμαι από την Ελλάδα.
I am Paraskeva Fridiriki and I come from Greece. You spoke of gender equality. However, every day in our country, the value of the life of women is debased. Femicides are on the rise. When the European Union looks at this rate, what does it think of doing to help women against this situation, and how can the lives of women be improved?
Juste le reste de la traduction, pardon.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ, χαίρομαι πολύ.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this question.
Mr. Papadimoulis,
so
if
the
that's
first
okay
one will
for
be...
you, we collect 3 questions and then you can reply
Όχι,
at once
προτιμώ,
because we are starting to run off.
Excuse me, I would rather give a fast answer one by one so that everyone gets their moment. First of all, I am very happy to hear a question from Greece, from a Greek woman. And as I said, it's the first time I have the opportunity to speak in my mother tongue. The subject that you put on the table is very important for our country. There is indeed a tremendous rise in femicide. Some men are killing their partners, their female partners, because they want to show that patriarchy is still standing, because they consider these women to be their property. They kill them because they don't want to remain in the relationship anymore, or because the men suspect that the women are doing something they do not consider right. They kill them. This must stop. And for this to stop, a lot must change. I consider that, first of all, the term femicide must be established, as our friend from Greece rightly said. It must be part of the Greek legal system, and these horrible crimes must receive a very severe punishment. But there must be a lot of change as well in the way that the state is organized. The legal system, the police, schools, the church, the media, the way we talk within the family, the way we educate our children, the values we convey. We must treat girls and boys the same in the family. We must understand that this was an alarm sounding. Now, as to what the EU will do, we cannot expect as Greece for the EU to act upon this. It is the Greek responsibility to do more about this. There is a regulation in the European Parliament which speaks of equality. However, equality, for example, in Scandinavian countries is at a great level. Gender equality in countries such as Greece, Bulgaria, Spain, Hungary, Malta, etc., is at not such a good situation. So this must also be tackled in each country. I also believe that there must be clauses regarding the severity of how these discriminations are managed in each country. We cannot claim to respect the rule of law and not be able to give a clear answer to phenomena such as those. So in Greece, we must change our mentality, but we must also change our legal system and also make an example of those who perpetrate these crimes through severe punishments, because unfortunately femicides are on the rise, and not only in Greece. Thank you.
So absolutely, it's about both culture and legislation working together, and it's about the people who also have to change the mindset. Thank you very much, Mr. Papadimoulis. What we can see here from Slido is that you're very much focusing on the subject of gender equality today, that we have more focus in the second part of this morning. Our Vice President, you can ask generally questions about Europe that are of concern for you, so you're welcome to do so. We have a very ambitious young lady, I suppose, from seat 366. She has been waiting for a while. Please, introduce yourself and take the floor. Yeah.
Good morning. Καλημέρα, όπως λέμε και στην Ελλάδα. Ονομάζομαι Καλυθέα Γαλάνη και ως εκπρόσωπος της Ελλάδας αυτή τη στιγμή και συγκεκριμένα των νέων, θα ήθελα να θέσω στον κύριο Παπαδημούλη ένα ερώτημα που πιστεύω ότι μας αφορά όλους τους νέους. Ένας νέος στην Ελλάδα νιώθει ότι βρίσκεται μακριά από το κέντρο λήψης αποφάσεων που καθορίζουν το μέλλον του. Θεωρείται ότι φέρει ευθύνη για αυτή την αίσθηση πολιτική της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Πώς μπορεί να ενισχύσει την φωνή μας?
Thank you so much. Just a little moment, please. There was no translation this time in English, so nobody understood your question, unfortunately, except Mr. Papadimoulis and all the other Greek people here today and online. Could you resume it in English? Is this possible? Just excuse me, we didn't have it in translation.
Only
please.
The question?
Yes.
A young person in Greece feels to be far away. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 1, 2. Yes. Okay.
66. Excuse me, would you please just repeat your question? Just the question part, in Greece.
Okay. Ένας νέος στην Ελλάδα.
A young person in Greece feels that he or she is far away from decision-making centers that define his or her future. Do you believe that young people are responsible for this lack of confidence? How do you think our voice can be reinforced?
Is it okay?
Yes, wonderful. We got it all.
The European Union can and must make more powerful and find more powerful and clear ways to convey the information about what it does, so as to reduce this feeling of distance that our friend from Greece so rightly mentioned. However, I believe that it is very important that the media in each country, as well as the national governments and local authorities, schools, etc. But I would like to stress the importance of the media to not snub and not undervalue what is going on in the European Union and the European institutions. Very often, Greek citizens feel they are far away from what goes on in Brussels because they are not informed about them. Dear friend, if you turn on the television in Greece, there is very few mention of what is happening in the European Union, of what is happening in the European institutions. We will have elections in a few weeks, and we will most probably not talk about the future of Europe and the future of Greece within Europe and what the Greek youth can do about this. It will most probably remain in the framework of a domestic party system debates. And the same will happen to a large extent in France and Germany and other EU countries now. But I will let you know, 7 out of 10 of the laws that are passed in Greece are the transposition of EU law in the Greek laws. That is why it is so important that everyone in all countries give more information about what is going on here in Brussels. And you, the youth, must think about the importance of participating in the European elections, and also think not only about what party you want to vote, but what people you want to represent you here. Those who can represent you and your country. We are 27 countries coexisting in the European Union. A lot has to be changed, and I think the key words are participation and information. I do believe the EU can do more about this, but mostly the European member states must stop just taking money from the EU and ignoring it, but actually provide information to their citizens about what is going on in Brussels. I very often see ministers inaugurating public works that have been financed with European money without mentioning that all this was achieved thanks to European funding. This must stop. Thank you.
And information, and ask from your own media in your country to get better information. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's not a problem limited to Greece only. It's also regarding pretty much every other member state that these dynamics happen. So we got the word that there is another online school or school from online here with us. It's a school from Greece. Let's see who it is. We will try to get you here into the hemicycle on the screen.
Here they come.
There you
the
go.
Prototypet Epal Algorus. I'm not very good in Greece. Please repeat the name of your school.
Introduce yourselves. Welcome to the hemicycle of the European Parliament. Okay, the connection
Go
is...
ahead. We can't hear you right now. Try, please.
Connection seems to be a bit slow.
I would see he is frozen, I would even mention. So we continue a little bit here in the hemicycle until this problem is resolved. Let's take first here in the very... Oh, no, you don't have a number, poor girl. I'm so sorry. Can you take the mic behind you, because here is no number. So number 23, please. And you ask the question. Would you just go there to this microphone, because here is no number?
So the reason why there's no number is because usually the council sits here on the left, is represented, and over there...
I think it's 1, 2, by the way. But
yeah,
go
exactly.
ahead. Number 23, please.
Okay, my name is Mila Kostadinova. I am from Bulgaria, and I am rather here to ask for help because the thing I want to talk about is really serious. Recently, men who started taking advantage of women, the rate of this has raised. Women don't feel safe, and from what I'm seeing, the punishment for such a crime is way too little, and men are not scared to do it again. In fact, the European Parliament has not done anything to actually make them scared from doing something like this. Why is it that there's no such a punishment that would make them scared to never actually touch a woman? Or if there is a punishment that you're thinking about, that would stop them from doing this, why is it that is not proved or that we are not seeing it? Men continue doing this. Men continue taking advantage of women. Do something about it because women don't feel safe in their house, in our own rooms. We don't feel safe anymore.
Thank you very much. Yes, clearly it's a subject of concern, not only in Bulgaria, I suppose. And we have our expert here in a moment with whom we can discuss this in very detail. But please, Mr. Papadimoulis, one more time on the subject of domestic violence.
I would like to salute this question and our young friend from Bulgaria, because she has been courageous and brave enough to speak about a topic that is an open wound. Greece is very close to Bulgaria, and I know there is an acute problem there, and it is getting worse and worse. And it's not only domestic violence that is getting worse, also trafficking is a huge issue. Corruption, the exploitation of women to make money by criminal gangs. We have voted the Istanbul Convention, and there was a huge struggle in Bulgaria to get it to finally ratify this convention. There are a lot of stereotypes that prevail. Unfortunately, my dear friend from Bulgaria, the European Parliament cannot do what Bulgarian justice and Bulgarian authorities are not doing to fight trafficking, to fight the exploitation of women by criminal gangs for profit. A radical cleansing and a severe criminal approach must be taken to fight these phenomena that take us back to the Middle Ages. There is no way to justify phenomena like this in the European Union. And it is not only Bulgaria that is witnessing this kind of situations. We also come across them in Greece, Italy, France, Germany. There must be a pan-European mobilization against this. The European Parliament cannot punish the culprits, but what it can do is raise everyone's voices. And I also invite you to pose this issue before those who are running as candidates in the next European elections. Ask them, what do they think? What are they thinking of doing about this? But it's a pleasure to hear this from you, and I expect to hear more about that from the representatives of Bulgaria in the European Parliament. And I hope that in the next Parliament, in which I will not be present, as I said, I am now retiring from this position in order to give way to young people. But I do expect the next Parliament to do more about this. And I would like to see a country to be punished not only for going over budget, but also for violating fundamental human values and fundamental principles of democracy and human civilization, such as the true respect of women and of all genders and races.
Definitely better rules about this. Let's take somebody in the very row behind 731. Yes, please, get up and ask your question.
Good morning. I am Bojima from the Luis Manzanares Institute in Murcia, Spain. And taking advantage of the upcoming June elections, we are concerned about the way they are carried out. The European Union defends environmental and sustainable policies, but at least in our country, the ballots are on paper. Tons of paper are spent, and then you don't know what you do with all that. First, we would like to know where does all that paper go? Second, what is being done about it? And finally, have you thought about alternatives such as thematic elections?
Thank you so much. So it's a climate question. Why do we use still paper for even the European elections if there is not a more sustainable way of voting, Mr. Papadimoulis?
Λέω ότι πρέπει να κάνουμε.
I would say we should do much more to defend our environment, the climate, and stop this crazy evolution towards destruction. Every year there are more and more fires, there are more and more other problems with the environment, like floods. So in Brussels, the temperature was even higher than in Cyprus or in Greece. Cyprus is next to the Middle East, so you do understand that human activities destroy our climate, and not only the climate, but we suffer damages, not only for the human health, for the environment, nature, but as well, it's a great danger for the economy, generally speaking, because finally, bigger areas will become desert. And if there's a desert, you have a financial catastrophe. This will happen in Spain, in Greece, in South France, in Portugal, and many things will change and become worse, even in the center and in the north of Europe. So we must get more activated for the climate, stop only talking and print the words on paper that you need thousands of trees in order to print the paper and newspapers, but do more actions. The European Parliament is active, and unfortunately in Commission and much more in the Council of Europe, there are much more conservative voices. They say that the economy will suffer losses if we do more things for the climate. But my answer is that new generations are much more sensitive and sensible to subjects concerning environment. So it would be very important to vote correctly in the European elections and ask not only what have you said, but what have you done? What are you going to do as members of the European Parliament? Are they just talking in order to take your vote, or did they do actions? Thank you very much.
Your vote makes a difference, so Europe changed faces. We know that you only have 5 more minutes because, as you can see, he is sitting in the Brussels Parliament and he has to vote at 11 o'clock. But we have another school online in Interactio. It's from Italy. By the way, we are very sorry for the Greek school. Sorry so much. There was a technical problem. This is why we couldn't take your answer. Your question. Here comes the Italian school. Please, on the screen for the very last question for our Vice President. Here we go. We can see you. Go ahead.
Good morning, We are Isis Ritalevi Montalcini from Italy, near Naples. We have a question about the main argument of this union. We all know that equality laws substantially vary from country to country in the European Union. Through a short online search, it is possible to discover that countries with the smallest gender gap are Norway, Sweden, Finland. How can other countries like Italy reach their level? There are also people who do not support gender equality. What can be done to promote it?
Thank you so much for your question, and Mr. Papadimouris will be the last one and your final words. So, gender gap, very good question.
Σας ευχαριστώ.
Thank you very much. First of all, maybe my friend from Italy will not be happy by my answer because according to the different statistics and index for gender equality is not among the best countries for equality. For example, to have best practices and maybe get inspired is Sweden, Finland, Denmark. So I would say in Italy, in Greece and in other countries, we should get more inspired by what has happened from your different countries and what has happened in Northern Europe, for example. I will say an example. In Finland, they got the right, women, to vote in general elections equally with men in 1905. In Italy and in Greece, it happened more or less 50 years later. And many people had to fight in Italy against the fascist Mussolini state in order to be able to give the election right to women. So my answer is, if we want to go ahead and have more equality, we have to fight for it daily, men and women, especially younger girls that dare more and are more open-minded, and men that are open-minded, because we can all win. Men and women and the whole society will have a more balanced and harmonious, happy functioning of our everyday life, at work, at training, political institutions, and in economy. This would be my answer. Permanent efforts. We got, and I told you I'm responsible for 10 years. We are responsible. I always say we achieved many things, but let's see what's left on the agenda. There's so many different actors and sectors where we have to activate ourselves so that human societies evolve. Human societies evolve because somebody has a vision, and the new generation is a great motto here historically. So it's your turn now, and if I hear your questions, you are very well sensibilized and you have all the means to succeed. I wish you a good success in whatever your engagement will be. Am I now going to do my closing remarks and we finish? Because we also have to vote in the plenary. Can I do my closing remarks now?
Yeah, we have the European elections coming up, so maybe just, your final remarks can be addressing the students on this, yeah. And then we let you go.
My closing remarks. It's always a pleasure to participate to a dialogue and exchange with the young generation. As you see, I'm not the wise man that knows all the answers. Don't only hear to the wonderful moderators. I try to say honestly my opinion. European Union is not a paradise, it's not hell, it's an ongoing experience evolving since 60 years now, and for centuries before, in the past, there were wars among the different populations. And after the Second World War ruins that had so many deaths, we started to get the European Union idea and ideal, and this is a bet that's ongoing. We want a united, democratic, peaceful, and peaceful-friendly Europe that will allow to its citizens and to the new generation to live better than the previous generation. Unfortunately, we did not succeed yet. There's still too much to do. It's like a bicycle. European Union is, if you don't want to fall, you have always to go ahead. It's like riding a bicycle. We need, in the new European Parliament, young people that can be more active, cycling and going ahead, because there's so many challenges around us, everywhere, that a new war around the corner. Inequalities in the society, inequality in gender, problems with violence, threats on the geopolitical level, new challenges and opportunities like artificial intelligence. I believe in united Europe. My vision is united democratic states of Europe with a strong budget, with more competences, with a stronger European Parliament than what we have today, and many more young men and women will be not only in EUROSCOLA, but young people in the European Parliament. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure for me to have you here, and a double pleasure because it was my first time I could speak in my native language, Greek. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we love to hear this beautiful Greek language. Thanks to you. Oh, he's already gone, but we still give him enormous round of applause because he shared his knowledge with us. Thank you to applaud him, even he's already running to vote. And on behalf, of course, also of the whole EUROSCOLA event. Before we move on to our second specialist, let's understand a little bit more who is sitting here in the room. I mean, you made quite some kilometers to be today in Strasbourg. Oh, you clicked yourself in online to be with us today. So we will use Slido to create a little world crowd, if you would like to. Please use slido.com to write the country where you came from. So we know a little bit more from where you are. Go ahead, wear your cell phones. you use your cell phones, you go on slido.com and you put in the name of your country and oh, look here, Austria is very quick to answer. Yes, very good. We have also some Netherlands people here we didn't hear yet.
Italy, as you already know, we've had
the
them
Czech
from
Republic
online.
is amongst us, some little green trees also.
Denmark.
Thomas Hermans, you didn't understand the homework. It was not your name we wanted. We wanted your country, but it's okay. Of course, France is present. Bulgaria, we heard already. Malta with 4 A's. Didn't know this one, but we understand.
Celebrating.
This is great. Look at all the countries you came from, even above the 27 who form the European Union. And by the way, while you continue doing this a little bit, of course, always Mr. Papadimoulis just told you, there's only one logical result all of this. Go and vote in this June. It is from the 7th to the 9th of June, depends on the country where the European election will take place. So make your voice heard. Vote for people who share your opinions. And don't let decide others about your future here in Europe, as said already Mrs. Metsola to start with.
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 countries that already start voting on the 6th. So
yeah,
it's
6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Here in France, for example, it's the 9th of June. It's in the most countries, it's on Sunday, but other countries decided other dates.
So we had 440 or now 450 students who already put in their country.
Sweden is here
so
also.
Let's see maybe where you are from, and maybe someone wants to introduce themselves and let us know. Also on the Interactio, you can join us. We have around 1,000 students on Interactio online. Here? Who wants to talk? I just saw it. 309.
Please present your school and tell us how you made it here today to Strasbourg.
Καλημέρα, ονομάζομαι Μαρία Τζορτζάκη.
Hello, my name is George Raki. I'm coming from Greece, from the school called Agia Varvara in Creta.
And how many hours you traveled to join us today?
Κάναμε περίπου 4 ώρες.
It took us something like 5 hours.
That you're another Greece school. Do we have something else
round
in
of
a Greece
applause to
school?
you.
Yes, please. Number 67, you have a headphone on, so I suppose you're not from Greece. Go ahead. Please present yourself. No, not 100. 67.
Bonjour à tous. Je m'appelle.
Καλημέρα σε όλους. Κάρα με λένε.
Hello, everyone. We came here via our bus. It took us over 6 hours to get here. So you need more hours to come here from France. I come from Crete. Excellent, absolutely excellent.
Yeah, I would say 525. Let's see where you're from. And then,
Is it on? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah. I'm Ionescu Andrei from Romania. We traveled here via plane. It was like a 3-hour flight. And then we took the train from Paris to Strasbourg, and we spent like 2.5 hours on the train.
Great. So you saw already a little bit for France and of Europe just to come here. So we have here a little group who has this nice little lion, I think he called Max. Let's see where your school is coming from. It is number 46, please.
Venimos de España.
We come from Spain, and we came here to the Parliament. And we learned many, many things that this occasion has created or come up from here. And thank you very, very much for this opportunity, and we hope to be able to return someday.
Wonderful. Round of applause
Thank
to
you for the whole EUROSCOLA team to make this happen, that you're all here, far more than 1,500 people in the room,
Yeah,
and everybody who is watching us
absolutely.
online.
So now it's time to move on to the second item on today's agenda. It's a learning and discussion session around the question that we have already discussed quite a lot in the first half of this morning. It's a Europe of equal opportunities, question mark, the European Parliament's defense of women's rights and gender equality.
Exactly, and this is again the moment to share your ideas and your propositions. So what I can say in this for this part is welcome to the Innovation Lab.
The European Parliament has always been very active when it comes to issues of gender equality. One of its standing committees specifically focuses on women's rights and gender equality. And we will now speak to an expert who is working with this committee. For almost 10 years now, the Istanbul Convention aims at preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence. It was initiated by the Council of Europe and entered into force on 1st of August 2014 and has remained the international standard and an essential instrument for eliminating gender-based violence. In June 2023, the European Union, as the 38th party, has as a whole ratified this convention. Now we would ask, is the ratification of the Istanbul Convention sufficient? And what other measures has the EU taken in this area? We will now have the chance to discuss the European Parliament's defense of women's rights and gender equality with our expert, Henry Wayson.
Absolutely, and by the way, it's called the Istanbul Convention, and not funny at all enough, as Turkey first ratified it and then switched out again. So it's not any more valuable in Turkey, what's really a pity. So Henry, thank you so much to being with us today. We give you first the floor for some introductory remarks. Please, on Henry.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you today. I look forward to your questions. I will do my absolute best to answer them. I'd like to, of course, specify I'm not a member of the European Parliament. I'm a civil servant working here. So I do work in the so-called FEM Committee, Committee for Gender Equality, Women's Rights. I have been doing that for quite a few years. My job is essentially to help the MEPs on that committee do their own job, which is to legislate, to make reports, to make opinions, to ask questions, to scrutinise and ensure that the European Commission and national governments are doing what they promised to do. There's quite a lot to the work of the committee, and I will explain, no doubt, in the next hour. So thank you very much once again for inviting me, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Henry. We also looking forward to your answers.
Yes, so let's see who has the first question. Again, also online, you can ask your questions on Interactio, just as before.
And just one little remark.
Yes.
Slido changes now a little bit its function. This is important. On Slido, you can write propositions, what you think is important, changing in Europe regarding gender equality and female rights especially. And they will be shown off Slido. You can rate them again. And at the very end, we will vote for your best proposition. So this works for everybody here in the hemicycle and, of course, everybody watching us online. So who wants to start with the first question to Henry? Go, Sven.
I would say 138. I saw the arms up first. You can again introduce yourself, where you're from, and then ask a question.
Hello, thank you for being here. I'm Fine Oskam, I'm from the Netherlands, and my question is about religion. One of the statements of the European Parliament is about freedom of religion, but in many countries and in many religions, women are discriminated. And what's your opinion about this? Thank you.
Interesting question, Henry.
What's your take on
Please,
this?
to start with.
Big applause.
Yes, of course, we guarantee freedom of religion. We also guarantee women's rights. Is there a conflict there? Well, very much depends on the religion, on the people and how it is interpreted. So the most important thing is that the rights of the individual have to be guaranteed. How this is done in practice? Yes, this is difficult. How things are interpreted, it comes down also to national courts. What we do in the European Parliament, what the members of our committee do, is to scrutinise how this is put into practice. So one of the ways that they do this, they might hold a hearing on the situation of women in a certain country, vis-à-vis the religious practices and so on. They will invite experts from that country or from that region to speak to them. They will maybe draft some recommendations, which then might feed into how the European Union as a whole deals with that country or region. It sounds a little bit slow, and in some ways it is, but this is how the rule of law works. We have to try to balance competing ideas, competing guarantees, and find our way forward.
Merci beaucoup, Henri. Thank you very much for this first answer. So please excuse me, let me remind you, on Slido right now, no more questions. Only propositions in the field of gender equality. Propositions, as if you were a member of the parliament and you could, put in a proposition into a commission, and at the end we will vote for the best proposition. No questions, only ideas and propositions on Slido. Thank you.
All right, so who's next? Who wants to ask next? Maybe again a little bit more from the back row. 601, please. 601, yes, it's yours. 601, yeah, your mic is on.
Buenos días, soy de
Good morning. I'm from the high school Luis Manzanares in Spain. Lately, we've seen on television proposals of cultures of the livestock and farmers. The proposals that the EU has taken in the sector of cattle herding. With the
But it's a question probably for the vice president who we had earlier on. Now we are really talking, it's the innovation lab, so-called. So we are now talking about, in this lab, the issue of gender equality and women's rights. Yeah. So you kind of missed your chance, but you can always write the vice president an email. You will find his name in the program again, and then find his email accordingly and ask the question there.
Oh, we can discuss this maybe in the afternoon program, but now it's not agriculture, it's only female and woman right related question. Who would like to ask this next one? I'm sorry, so we can't answer to your question this time. 360 want to have the word. Go ahead, girl.
Hi, this is Elise from Malta.
We didn't understand this. Say it again, please.
This is Elise from Malta. In Malta, there is basically a complete ban on abortion, and I was wondering if the EU is striving to do anything towards this, because if we're arguing for equal rights, we should at least have the right over our own body to choose.
Thank you very much. The abortion question for Europe. Also in Germany, they discuss this question again in these days. Henry, what can we say about this?
Yes, indeed. Malta and Poland restrict abortion quite a lot. And this is certainly a political issue. It is discussed at the European level, but it's mainly discussed at the national level. So MEPs, members of the European Parliament, will certainly talk about this. They might draft reports about it, but this is essentially a national matter. So I can't really give you perhaps the answer you would like. But that's the way the EU is devised. We have the European level, we have the national level, we have the regional level, and they all have their own powers and competences.
Okay, thank you very much, Henry. We have a school again from on Interactio. From Spain is Porsons. So let's see, what is your question? Hello to Spain. Welcome to the European Parliament.
You are on screen. The word is yours. Go
Everybody
ahead. Floor
is
is yours.
Hi, I'm Ayana from Ayala de Malferry in Spain, and I would like to know what strategies are being implemented to increase the representation of women in leadership positions in the European Union and its member states.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, the question
Thank
on
you so
women
much.
in leadership position. Thank you. And yeah, Henry, what is the European Parliament doing on this?
Quite a lot. Your question leans towards the political angle, I think, women in politics. But we shouldn't also forget that there are other types of leadership roles. So one of the pieces of legislation the FEM committee has recently contributed to is the gender balance among non-executive directors of companies listed on stock exchanges, for example. So the idea there is to have essentially a quota to ensure that at least 40% of non-executive director posts are filled by the underrepresented sex, which normally means women. In politics, the EU, of course, has several different aspects to it. We've got the number of women who are elected as MEPs, as members of the European Parliament. In the European Parliament, it's something like, I think, 38%, which is not quite 50%, but it's not too bad. It does depend on the political parties. So there's no enforcement mechanism per se to ensure that each political party in each member state has equal representation of candidates. Some political parties do, and the European Union kind of strives for this, but it's up to the political parties in each country and therefore up to the voters. Another aspect is higher up in the leadership, you could say, that the number of women who are leading committees, who are the chairs of committees, or who have powerful positions like that, but more importantly, perhaps, the type of posts they are given. So are they given the traditional hard, powerful posts, or are they given more soft, diffuse roles where they have less influence? In the EU, we also have the President and Vice President of the European Commission. There we have the President of the European Commission who is female, and the commissioners, it is 50-50, and that's something which is quite explicit. We ask member states to nominate 2 commissioner designates, and one must be a woman, the other must be a man, so we can ensure gender parity. The President of the European Parliament at the moment is a woman as well. So we are doing relatively well. We can still do better. But in the democratic process, we can't really mandate it. That's really up to the political parties. And therefore, it does filter down to what the voters want. We need to provide the conditions that it is certainly possible. I mentioned the gender balance of directors in companies listed on the stock exchanges. So the EU is actually putting forth legislation in the non-political sphere to increase participation of the underrepresented sex. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this answer. So finally, it's again up to you.
Yeah, you can always
your
applaud,
political
of course.
parties in your countries. You have to get pressure on that they propose more female candidates. Okay, let's look for a next question. Yes, 308. Please express yourself.
308. 308.
It's not red yet.
Just wait for the mic to
308,
turn.
please.
Now it's
Here we
red.
go.
All right. You can now ask a question. Yeah.
Καλημέρα σας. Ονομάζομαι Αναστάσης Παπα.
Good morning. I am Anastasis Papavasiliou.
When you switch languages, that is not English, most likely this language spoken by everyone here, more or less, just announce it prior so the interpreters can get started and we also have the chance to put the headphones on. Thank you.
Θα ήθελα να ρωτήσω αν είναι ανησυχητικό ότι υπάρχει μεγάλη...
Yes, I would like to ask if you're concerned about the fact of the rise of gender stereotypes in the EU. Some countries are ahead of others, and how do you believe we can bridge this gap?
Types. How can we tackle this? Okay, Henry, you got it?
Yes,
Thank you.
It's a very good question indeed. I'm not sure rise is the correct word because gender stereotypes have been around for quite some time and it is a concern. We have recently, I think it was a year ago, we had a hearing on this topic on boys and education and the role of sexual stereotypes there. So our members, for example, would hold a hearing on this topic. Experts, academics, national experts would come in, would give examples of what is happening in their country, and then our members would, of course, listen. There would be an exchange of views, questions asked, debate, and then we would come out perhaps with reports on it, with ways forward of recommendations, which would then filter into the national and local areas. It's something which has been a concern of our members for a long time. Our chair at the moment is Robert Biedron. He's a man, as you might guess from his name. He has often said that gender equality is not just for women, it benefits men as well. And this is something that has to be stressed. These gender stereotypes, they discriminate against free choice. They discriminate against each person achieving his or her full potential because they railroad, they force people into a certain avenue which might not be to their liking. So it is really something quite fundamental. It's something that we all have to look at and guard against. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, always saying it is up to you, but it is up to everyone. We have to talk about this. We have to call it out when we see it. So this is, I think, the most fundamental message is you have to speak, you have to act.
Exactly. Everybody is a part of changing this topic for sure. Okay, let's take a question very behind. 578, please. Word is yours. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Andrea. I'm from Romania. And my question is, what does the European Parliament do to ensure that survivors of domestic or sexual abuse are not only heard, but truly supported and empowered to reclaim their lives?
Domestic violence, dear Henry.
And sexual abuse.
And sexual abuse.
Yes. You mentioned earlier in your introduction the Istanbul Convention. This is a key international treaty which the EU and its individual countries, apart from, I think, 8, have signed up to. There we have the obligation for member states, for national governments, to create sexual assault centres, for example, so that if somebody is, and it's not just women, if somebody is assaulted in this way, they get specialised care, they get seen by police officers and doctors who actually are trained in this area. So this is the first step. We must also set up, indeed, refuges for people who have experienced this kind of thing, so they have the ability to leave, because often the case is that the people, often women, who experience sexual violence, it's domestic in nature, not always, but often there may be real problems in escaping that situation because of financial issues, because of children, and so on. So this is another key mechanism. We have recently, in the FEM Committee and in the European Parliament, approved the identifying gender-based violence as a new area of crime on a European level. So this is, again, meant to address this situation. We are fully aware, of course, that especially during the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns, this led to a huge rise in domestic violence, in sexual assaults in the domestic arena, and this is something, again, which has to be properly addressed with the design of the recovery funds and so on. So programs have to be addressed to this issue. As I said, the Istanbul Convention helps in this, the various pieces of legislation at the European level and at the national level. So it's something which we are constantly working on. We have legislation passed in this area. We have hearings. We have scrutiny. So another key issue, as I said, is that even when we have a piece of legislation, our members then will invite members of the European Commission, the commissioners, or other people who are actually enforcing this legislation to come into Parliament and to discuss how it's actually working in practice. Because legislation has to be updated if it's not working properly in practice. So I hope that begins to answer your question.
Absolutely, knowing, of course, this kind of issues also very much a national issue first. Europe can do a lot and tries to do a lot, but first of all, it is your national government who is responsible for implying this kind of politics. Okay,
absolutely.
I think we take 3 questions now for Henry. Henry is so good in answering, so we can give more to you the word.
And very concise he is as well,
exactly.
because they're very
good,
complicated questions. And yeah, exactly.
Let's start with
wonderful.
293.
At the same
First
number
question,
in mind.
and we choose 2 others. It's okay?
For me, it works.
Hello?
Henry, for you, it's okay as well that we take
Very
3
good,
questions?
Yes, you have a pencil. He's so much prepared. We got all these papers. I love it.
Absolutely.
293, please.
Hello, my name is Atena Kanno, and I'm from Estonia. And my question is, we have problems somewhere, and it starts somewhere. So what do you think is the origin of patriarchal thinking, and what steps should be taken to address this issue? Thank you very much.
Wow, origin of patriarchy.
Wonderful
Sven?
question, I think. Let's see, in the front row, yeah, 25, you have been waiting for a while.
Hello, I'm George Miteletsis from Greece, and I would like to know what can parents and teachers do to promote gender equality values to children at a young age, and how does the European Union help with that initiative?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will also take 368. Please stand up, and if you do not speak English, French, or German, let us know.
Yes, I'm gonna speak in Greek, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. In Greece, there was a law passed recently which approved same-sex marriage. However, in other countries, even within the EU, these LGBTQ individuals are being persecuted. What can the EU do on this?
Thank you for your question.
So, origin of patriarchy, what can teachers and schools do, and how does the EU support? And question on same-sex marriage and the rights of discrimination, yes.
Well, I think the first 2 questions are linked in a way. Patriarchal thinking, we already briefly discussed this with the idea of gender stereotypes and how parents and teachers can combat gender stereotyping and increase gender equality at a young age. So how much can we do at the European level? Of course, it's limited. You quite rightly, the second question, quite rightly focused on parents and teachers. This is the most important. But parents and teachers don't operate in isolation. They operate in our society. We have to ensure that they have the information, they have the ability to answer questions, to address concerns from more, let us say, traditional thinkers, to be able to argue the case that gender equality is a good thing, that gender stereotyping is harmful. The last question was on same-sex marriage. Indeed, we have a variety of laws. This is national legislation across the EU. And this is something which is actually going through the court system as well, because if you have a marriage between same-sex marriage recognized in one country, and these people, freedom of movement in the EU, move to a country where it is not recognized, what happens? What are the legal implications? There's a symbolic recognition of marriage, but there are some real practical implications, things like pensions, things like who decides on hospital treatment. So this is really life and death issues. The EU is working on it. Our members are concerned about it, but it is fundamentally a national power, so it's something which has to be changed at the national level. And to some extent, this is happening. When you have a new government, it might move forward on this. So the answer, as always, is to vote, not just at the European level, but the national level, the local, regional level. But voting is not enough. As always, it's up to you. You have to speak out. You have to speak to your parents, your grandparents, your colleagues. That's how it works. That's how society changes, because politicians reflect their voting base. That's the key.
Thank you so much for explaining.
Thank you. And we have a school, again, from online, from the UK, from the United Kingdom, the Oakley Grange School.
We are happy to welcome a country who's not in the European Union anymore. Hello, please ask your question. We are delighted that you're with us.
Welcome.
Hello. I was wondering, why is there still a big gender pay gap between men and women, and what the European Parliament are doing to address this?
Thank you so much. We already answered a little bit to this question, but I'm sure that Henry has some other elements to add.
It's a very good question. On average, across the EU, the gender pay gap, I believe, is something like 14%. Some countries do much better. Some countries do worse. Why is there still a gender pay gap? Because we have allowed it to happen. There is legislation in place to try to combat against this discrimination, but of course it has to be properly enforced. The European Parliament has recently passed legislation on this, the pay transparency legislation. The idea being that you must have a right to know how, without going into individual details, but on a kind of a anonymous level, how different people in your company are paid, to make sure that there is no gender pay gap. And companies actually have, depending on their size, they have a certain amount of time to put into place a plan to fight against this gender pay discrimination. One of the issues is that it gets a little bit complicated, because it's easier to ensure that if two people are doing the same job, they are paid the same, but we are also concerned about jobs of equal value. So if men and women perhaps dominate different positions in a company, we have to try to ensure that jobs of equal value are paid the same. And what has tended to happen historically is that women would concentrate on a certain type of job, and that job would be less valued. So it becomes a kind of a loop, which is, of course, something we need to break out of. It's also a little bit more complicated, because then we have part-time work. Women, again, tend to take the role of carers more than men do, whether it's young children, elderly relatives, and so on, and might work part-time. So that's another issue. But as I said, we have recently passed legislation on this very issue. It gives individual member states, the national governments, which no longer includes the UK, a certain amount of time to transpose it into national legislation, and there will be basically penalties to companies which continue this practice. So it will be interesting to see if this global average figure in the EU of 14% will decrease in the next few years. Unfortunately, it will take some time. Thank you.
Add a little detail. Henry, please correct me if it's wrong, but the laws who decide how a society is running is most of the time made also by a majority of men. So we have to vote for more women being in political representation, so the woman perspective and something like the gender gap would be addressed more. I'm right, Henry, or it is an opinion?
Yes, I think that's quite a good position. Again, it shows you that better legislation, better for everyone in society, needs to have the input of everyone in society.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the next round of questions.
Yeah, and I may want to add that feminism then, of course, as we already mentioned before, is not limited to women, though. So it can also be the man
feminist
who
men
bring
are
the
what we
change
need more,
together
for sure.
with the woman, and so on. 3 more questions in a row. 537. You have the floor. 537.
Buenos días, soy Maruada.
Good morning. Luis Manzanares High School in Murcia, Spain. Lately, we've seen on television many protests on the farmers, livestock, and against the policies that the EU has taken against that sector. We've seen that the primary sector continues to be, not exclusively, but mostly male. And so are there particular proposals for that sector to increase the participation of women in that sector? Will anything be done?
Interesting. Okay.
Thank you.
Then we have somebody with a little flag on his office. Number 318, please.
It's Poland, no?
She will introduce, I suppose.
Hi, I'm Elenia. I'm not from Poland, I'm from Malta. I would like to say, earlier my friend Elise has talked to Mr. Henry about abortion. You have said that it is a national problem, and I don't find that a satisfactory answer, especially in the European Parliament. After quick research online, I found out that there is currently, I assumed it is the one that the former Vice President has gone to vote for. There is a motion to make the right to abortion an EU fundamental right, which would ensure sexual and reproductive health rights to many women in the European Union, such as in member states like Malta and Poland, where abortion is a crime. The women still have abortions, it's a fact. They have unsafe abortions, which would kill them. So I would like to take this short moment to ensure that the MEPs vote as they should, because their vote is... it represents a lot of women. Their vote could kill or save many women. And I would like to pass on another question related to what the madam has said earlier. You've said that we should elect more women in parliament. In my country, in the parliament, there's a quota to elect more women if there is not the gender that is not equal. Currently, there weren't enough women, so it wasn't equal, and some women were elected, which was a controversial take in our country, as the women that were elected were deemed political puppets. Is it fair that our gender and feminism is used as a political ploy? So we say that we have more women in parliament, but in reality they're just puppets. Thank you.
Two passionate questions.
And just on a personal note, can I see your flag again, just for me to learn it better? Thank you.
The Malta flag.
Sorry for the mashup. So I think 45 has been waiting for very long. I would like to give you the floor.
Thank you. I am speaking in Spanish, okay?
What are the measures, the specific measures that are being taken to provide gender equality and inclusion in the political and work area within the EU? Thank you.
And we have one more question in 599, and then the word is yours, Henry.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ainara. I'm from Spain. It's a pleasure to be here. So in my country, women are increasingly moving away from the scientific field, since we have been taught that it's a men's thing. So my question is how we can encourage women to enter in the scientific field.
I love your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. How we can ensure more women in the scientific field. Thank you for taking notes with all those questions, Henry. It's quite a lot of things.
I think it's 4 at once. Even
yes,
5
yes,
if we take that.
We go ahead.
Yeah. I will try to answer the agricultural question. It's not something I know much about, but before I did start working in this committee, we actually had an opinion on this very topic, on women in agriculture. So that is, I was trying to look for when we actually did it. So it's something that is addressed. So how does this kind of thing be addressed? Yes, farmers are protesting, women are underrepresented there. How to increase women working in the farming sector? Well, our MEPs have looked at this, have issued some recommendations which have fed into a report. Unfortunately, I have to admit, this was before my time here, so I can't really say much about it. I apologize for that. But the report is publicly available. So if you were to Google something like women in agriculture plus European Parliament, you should be able to find it. The abortion issue, yes, things can be changed, and this is very clear. MEPs will debate this topic, MEPs will talk about it. Bear in mind, of course, that you tend to have the same political parties in your national parliament as you do in the European Parliament. So this has not happened in isolation. Yes, maybe you have 1 or 5 parties in power in whichever country, and there will be the corresponding members of the European Parliament. So these things are linked. So yes, things can be changed, and again, as you correctly said, you wanted, I think, to make sure that the members of the European Parliament vote in the right way. Yes, email them. Their emails are publicly available. You have to pressurize, you have to lobby. That's how politics works. Electing more women is not indeed a panacea. You have to have women who you correctly state are independent, and I think I mentioned before, we have to make sure that women are not just given the, I hate to say it, the kind of traditional portfolios, family culture, which might not be hard-hitting. So you are quite correct. This is something which is a concern. You can't just have puppets. You can't just have women who are there just to make up the numbers. They have to be people who actually want to be there on their own merits, and they have to be elected for that purpose. So you are quite correct. We already talked a little bit about increasing women's participation in politics and work. I mentioned some concrete pieces of legislation which my committee, which European Parliament has recently enacted, the pay transparency legislation. So that's the equal pay, equal pay for equal work between men and women, pay transparency and enforcement mechanisms. That's the title. We have the similar idea for the women on boards. In politics, to encourage women to take part, yes, you could have quotas, but that's not something which is currently in force in the European sphere. But it's something that could be brought in, and again, you need to lobby for that. You need to try to get your representatives to push for it, to make it happen, because rules can be changed. The ways of doing things are constantly updated to take into account society's progress, mores, morality, and so on. Last question, women in science and so on, STEM, science, technology, mathematics, something like this. Yes, this is something, again, which my committee, our members, have looked at repeatedly. We've had hearings on this topic, we've brought forward proposals, and it is quite interesting because actually, if I recall, for most science degrees at university, you have more women at the undergraduate level. And it starts to change once you go into postgraduate qualifications, doctorates, and so on. So there's clearly an issue which needs to be looked at, and our members did look at it, and I highly recommend you we had a hearing on it, we had a opinion on it, which an opinion is when our members write on a specific topic which is mainly addressed by another committee, but these are things which our members are looking at. I can't tell you from memory the recommendations, but they are publicly available, so please do look for them. If you have any problems finding them, I believe my email, you can search for it online, and I'll be happy to reply once I get back into my office.
So much, Henry, to say all this, and also to remind all of you, there's a lot of documentation who is freely available in every issue you are interested in. So just search for it and write to your national or European Parliament here. Their emails are also available on Google, and I know that you know how to use Google, for sure. Okay, we have another school online now from Italy, the IES Pacifici di Magistratius, without any doubt not well pronounced. Hello, we are so happy that you're with us. Hello, everybody, and the floor is yours. Please ask your question.
Hello, everyone. We are Martina and Clotilde, and we're from Italy, from the IES Pacifici and the Magistris. Our question is about media. So, the media and political communication have a main role in the fight of the gender gap. Do you think that European medias use proper vocabs today, or they're still stuck by old biases and stereotypes?
Thank you so much for your question. Please, Henry.
It's an excellent question. Yes. I do not believe in general, it's a huge generalization, that they use the proper terminology, proper vocabulary. I'm from the UK, from the United Kingdom. Newspapers, not all of them, would often use the phrase a man and his wife. I mean, no. So yes, you're quite right. The vocabulary we use conveys a message, even if it's a subconscious message. And media and journalists have to pay attention to this. Of course, some media, some journalists might lean towards a more, I hate, again, the phrase traditional point of view, and are quite happy using this language. So you're right. What can we do? Well, consumers buy newspapers or consume news in various ways, and we have to act. We have to write in if we see an article which uses this kind of vocabulary. We have to try and put pressure. There's nothing we can do to force journalists to use certain words.
Thank you so much, Henry. And just to remind you, we will in 5 minutes start to vote on your proposition and ideas you put on Slido, so it's the last moment to put some up there or to like the others. And Henry, we make a last round of 3, maybe 4 questions for you. Thank you so much for your patience and your availability. Okay, who would like to ask a question? I already had you. Number 163, please. Thank you for introducing you, and let us know if you do not speak English.
Good morning. I'm Petros Roukas from Greece, and I would like to ask a question. How can the EU engage with civil society organizations and advocacy groups to gather diverse perspectives and ensure that gender equality remains a priority in policy making?
Thank you very much.
Wonderful
The networking
question.
from
Perfect.
Europe with the others.
I will
Sven?
look into the front rows a little bit. Seat 30, please.
Hello, my name is Desiswava and I am from Bulgaria. I want to say that we cannot reach fully gender equality if we not focus on men's rights too. We accept men to be this and that and be strong and not show their emotions, but we need to focus on making them understand that they can feel however they want and they can say how they feel. And how does the European Parliament deal with this? Is it as strongly discussed as women's rights?
Very interesting question. For our society to change, both sexes need to change in their roles for sure. And we have 729, please. Thank you to let us know if you speak another language than English.
One moment.
Just now your mic is red. You can go.
Where are you from? What's your name?
Good morning. I am Ivana from the Luis Manzanares Institute in Murcia, Spain. As we already know, education can be key to resolving, or at least to changing, the current situation regarding gender equality. Has the European Parliament proposed the design of a common educational program to address the problem?
Okay.
Thank you.
What Europe can do to educate the Europeans better to this topic. This will be your last round of answers, but don't worry, you have in the afternoon still a lot of possibilities to interact and to ask questions. Here we go, Henry.
Yes, okay, so looking at education, it is indeed key to gender equality, which is why, as I mentioned, we had hearings on boys, sexual education, stereotypes, this kind of thing. But education is what we call a national competence, so it's up to each national government to organize it. It means that at the moment, unless we fundamentally change something, there isn't really a common educational program. What rather happens is that there's an exchange of best practice MEPs would invite national experts to come and talk. They would then communicate with their own political parties in their own countries. They would issue recommendations. So it's indeed something which is highly important, but it's something which the main focus would be at the national level, which is not to say that the EU is powerless, is useless in this area, but perhaps the direct effect would be from the national capitals or the regional capitals, depending on the country. Men's rights, yes. I think we already talked about this a little bit because, indeed, gender equality benefits men as well. I'm trying to calculate. I'm actually 47 years old, and when I was young, quite some time ago, my father would spend an hour going to the centre of London to work, an hour coming back. He wouldn't take care of childcare. Very different with me and my children, and this is not a punishment for me. This is something that I highly value, and it is thanks to gender equality. This is something which has benefited me immensely. So yes, this is great. We have to, as you quite correctly say, we have to get away from these gender stereotypes where men can't show emotion. They have to be always strong. And it is very much discussed at the European level. We have our chair, Robert Biedroń, a man who constantly says that men are not just allies, but they benefit from gender equality. We have language used, I think I mentioned it before, the language we use in the legislation which we do pass, or the reports and so on. We would say perhaps the lesser represented sex or whatever. Sexual assault, yes, it happens to men as well. This is why you need specialists to deal with these phenomena. You can't just stereotype, yes. So it is being discussed. It is something which is very much on the radar of our members and hopefully on the radars of our incoming members after the elections in June, which again, make sure you vote, make sure you help your colleagues, family to vote. The first question, I believe, was how does the EU engage with civil society? Very much so. There's structured dialogue. We have NGOs who come to Brussels, who might be invited to Brussels to talk on specific topics. Whenever there's a piece of legislation, it's proposed by the European Commission, the civil service. But before there's actually a proposal which is sent to our members and to the European Council, you have a public consultation. So if you are interested, people asked a few questions about agriculture. If you go to the agricultural page of the European Commission, you will find a tab or a link where you'll find all open consultations. So you click there and there might be, we plan to have an upcoming legislation on XYZ. Please give your opinion. Who gives their opinion? Yes, lobbyists, civil society, but could be any citizen as well. All you have to do is go and give your opinion. You can contact your MEP directly. You can contact your national government. This is also an important aspect of civil society engagement. And I did mention, of course, the hearings we have. This is vital. Hearings are where MEPs invite civil society. But we also have missions where our members might go to other countries. Could be in the EU, could be outside the EU. So in, I think, 2022, I participated with members of the FEM committee, elected members. We went to Poland to look at the situation of sexual health, women's rights, abortion in Poland, as well as the situation of Ukrainian refugees, because 90% of them are women and children. So we went there, we visited a refuge for Ukrainian women, we visited NGOs, we spoke to NGOs, we spoke to the national government, the various ministries, as well as opposition groups. So this is all how the whole system works. It's a constant exchange of information which works best if civil society engages, participates. So again, I don't want to go back to saying it's up to you, but this is how MEPs and all legislators get their information. So do participate, do contact your MEPs. Their emails are publicly available. This is the idea.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to share all with us. And I hope you hear this. It's up to you. Get involved. Make politics on every level. This is the point. So, thank you so much. Please, Henry, stay with us. So we will comment on the leading and winning proposition we will right now elect together with all of you, of course. So, Sven, let's start to see who are the four.
Let's give a moment to the regie to
yes,
figure it out.
to get
and then we can
the order
read the
inside
top
of
four.
this.
There they are. Wonderful. So,
yes,
Annette,
in a second
start?
we will see which. By the way, this. Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
so let's start with number 4. This is one of the 4 propositions. You can vote right now on Slido after we say the vote is open. And of course, this is also available for everybody watching us online. Hello, schools all over Europe. So there should be more punishment for sexual abusers, including child abusers and pedophile, because they get little to no penalties. This is what's written here as a proposition.
And another suggestion is, second from the bottom, more support for single mothers, especially in times of inflation, etc.
The third proposition is, the European Parliament could work more on sexual education in schools, because it is currently at a relatively weak level.
And the fourth proposition is the EU should use universal laws that count for every country in order to achieve true equality.
With all the limits we heard about national and European legislation. A lot of things are just on the national level. This is how it works right now.
Absolutely. So give more competence to the EU, basically, on this matter. So now it's time for you to decide. So you have 1 minute to vote on Slido. And I will use the official word of the President of the European Parliament, who is usually sitting there behind us on this chair. And I will say, the vote is open.
Everybody goes on Slido. Vote is open. Please go for it. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Yes, this is wonderful. It's working. You're participating. Only 200 people go ahead. You're more than 1,000 people more. We will have more votes.
Already
you do not have your cell
300
phones with you?
votes now.
You don't have your cell phones with you? No cell phone to vote? I don't see cell phones on the tables. I mean, there are already more than 400 people voting.
400, yes.
A little bit more time for you.
Okay, I think
10 seconds more, this is what they just said, right, Benoit? 10 seconds more. So let's count it down.
All right.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the vote is closed.
Yep.
And we have a very clear winner with 614 votes.
Exactly. Give yourself a big round of applause.
There should be more punishment for sexual abusers, including child abusers and pedophiles, because they get little to no penalties. Henry, what's your take on this?
Okay, a stronger punitive aspect.
Yes, well, I'm happy to report that in April, the European Parliament voted in favour of the directive combating violence against women and domestic violence. So that's clearly linked to what you were saying. The idea was to criminalise those forms of violence which disproportionately affect women and which are insufficiently addressed at the national level. So it was things like rape on the basis of lack of consent, because in some countries, I believe that there's a you distinguish between rape with force and without force. Also female genital mutilation, as well as cybercrime and so on, sharing of images and so on. It also aims to increase protection for victims and access to justice, to make sure that the crimes were properly, competently investigated. Again, you might need specialised units to deal with these particular crimes. We also successfully voted for, better victim support. So we're talking about access to national helplines, improved access to shelters, and comprehensive support in the workplace as well for victims of work-based sexual harassment. We also focused on prevention as well, to make sure that there were awareness-raising activities, to make sure that the professionals, the experts, or the professionals who came into or were likely to come into contact with victims of these types of crime, again, had the access to training that they needed to be able to do their job in a competent manner. So that's very much something that we were working on. Not so much this particular piece of legislation perhaps was not focused on paedophilia, but is clearly linked. So yes, we are working on that, and yes, it is a concern. Please continue to contact your members of the European Parliament to lobby for greater action, because that's the way things happen. This is exactly how this piece of legislation came to be, because of grassroots pressure. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Yes, applause to you. And it's clearly also about communication. So many people on the ground, they don't really know what is the EU already doing. So please spread the word. The European Union is very active, and in the end, yes, it's also up to you to speak to your peers and let them know. We got the word from the regie that we have a little bit more time than expected at the moment. Would it be okay for you if we take 2 more rounds of questions?
Yes, for me.
Okay,
Wonderful.
because you have so many questions you want to ask. Let's go
Exactly.
straight to it. 270, ask your question. Short and good, so we can have more of this wonderful knowledge of Henry.
Good morning, I'm talking in Italian. Buongiorno, sono...
Good morning, I'm Italian from Liceo Lioi, and my question pertains to what the European Union intends to do or is already doing in order to make people aware that a mindset change is required in order to obtain concrete change, and not just through laws which punish negative behaviors. Earlier, a girl in the first row wanted to ask a question, but she was told she might have that opportunity later. Perhaps we can grant her that opportunity now. Thank you.
Like a mindset changement. Let's take a second question.
Thank you.
Yes,
Annette,
250.
Okay, so he was hinting actually at the girl in the front row.
Good, okay.
So who was it who wanted to ask a question? Was it you on number 1? Is that who you were talking about? Okay. So I don't know if you heard that with the translation.
I
but
heard this.
that's
I
why,
heard this.
yeah.
So number 1 first, and then the other one. Go ahead.
Okay.
But it's just that she already asked the questions, and normally we try to give the word. Go ahead, please. Take again the mic 23, please. Mic 23. Here we go.
Yeah. So my question was regarding mostly about religion again, because one of the main reasons why women are not respected, or they're not given respect, also the LGBTQ community are not respected, is because of every single religion. We are taught that we should follow it because it's part of history. Maybe it should really become part of history nowadays, because we don't need it in nowadays society. We should focus more on people, individuals, not how it's written in a book by men from who knows how many years ago. We should focus more on nowadays, women's rights, men's rights, people from different sexualities, and overall safety, the safety of every single citizen. It doesn't matter which country they're from or which continent. Overall, we should focus more on safety and not really religion and historical events.
Thank you. Another question about religion. And where, yeah, exactly, yeah, I already saw you. 215, please, for this round.
Hello, my name is Simona. I'm from Bulgaria. And I would like to ask, why is the killing of innocent unborn babies not mentioned when we talk about the consequences of abortion? Why is killing an unconscious person a crime, but killing a baby should go unpunished because it's more convenient for some girls or women? Yes, it's my body, my choice, but it's not the baby's choice to be killed. Are there people, my question is, are there people working on this direction as well?
So we have, this is great. I like this question because this shows all range of opinions. The questions, of course, who is a baby? When do we start to call it a baby? But I let Henry to handle with this delicate issue. Please, Henry, up to you.
I'll take the easier first question first, if that's okay. So yes, to have a mindset. I already told you a little bit about what we are doing. In that sense, you specifically mentioned not legislation. So yes, we also work on communication, on trying to change the mindset. We have a Gender Awareness Week, which takes place in October, where every European Parliament committee and most of the delegations, they have meetings which are basically focusing on gender equality topics. So if it's the Agriculture Committee, they might have a meeting focusing on women in agriculture and so on. So this is really quite interesting. We recently also celebrated, of course, International Women's Day on the 8th of March. We had a large event in the FEM committee on the previous day, the 7th of March, devoted to the topic of women in sport. This was a really, really fascinating, you could call it a hearing if you want. It was actually a so-called inter-parliamentary meeting. So we invited prominent sportswomen, and we also invited the members of national parliaments from each of the member states, plus the accession countries. I think only Turkey of the accession countries turned up, but so we had a large meeting discussing the position of women in sport as sports practitioners, but also in terms of administration, because as we earlier heard, if you want to have change, then you have to have women perhaps in the governing structures, and yes, they shouldn't be puppets as previously mentioned. So this is online. If you go to the website of my committee, you will be able to find it. It's really worth listening to. We had some really, really very interesting and powerful speakers. So I highly recommend you do that. And this is actually something which had quite a lot of interest with the media. So the media picks up on especially these larger events. So this is a way to hopefully change people's minds, to bring attention to certain issues. Now, your more complicated questions. Yes, the second speaker, I'm not sure it was really a question because you're talking about the negative effects of religion. Certainly there are plenty of people who share your point of view. I suspect, I can't tell for sure, but maybe the last speaker might not share your point of view. Because the last speaker, of course, was talking again about abortion, but talking about the rights of the unborn child. So clearly there is a political difference. And this is why we have these issues where perhaps people are not satisfied. We have to determine where the fetus becomes a person, and that, of course, is partly perhaps a medical question, partly it could be a philosophical or religious question. And as you know, people have very different points of view depending on how they value religion, science, different philosophical, moral considerations. So there's no easy answer. Yes, the killing, I'll try to quote you, the killing of innocent unborn babies is talked about. This is the European Parliament. We have 705 elected members. They span the political spectrum. So very much so, there are MEPs who talk in favour of banning abortion or severely restricting it. This you can check by looking at any of the recorded and publicly available sessions of the European Parliament, especially the committee in which I work for. You will hear people defending this point of view. So yes, it is talked about. Then you also have people defending the opposite point of view. How do we reach an agreement? Well, I'm not sure you can really agree on that issue, but you can vote. And that's what we do. So there is a vote, and the point of view which has the most votes in that case would either enact legislation or similar. So that is how it works. So once again, you have to vote. If you value the rights of the unborn child, then you vote for and you advocate for political parties, political groups which share your views. So yes, it is talked about very much. It's actually a very large part of the discussions in the European Parliament. Thank you.
For this little lesson in democracy. So yes, it is talked about. We do a last quick round and then we give the final word to Henry. 157, go ahead, please.
Hello. I have a question that is inspired
Where
by
do you come from? Just
I'm from the Netherlands, by the way.
Thank you.
But I'll just speak English. I have a question that is inspired by some of the stuff I've heard today, and I want to ask, how do we make sure that gender equality is about equality between genders and not about a flip in the way it's right now? Because as a man myself, I feel like in the future we're going to just have a world where women dominate and men become the underrepresented part.
Very good. What we do against this fear of yours, Sven?
Thank you. 422, please.
Hello, I'm Sophie from Latvia. And you kind of already answered the question, but it's more specific. In a lot of countries, there are some discriminations in sports, for example, like hockey and football. And there is even difference in the payment for athletes that are Europe. What are Europe Union that could change the situation for women athletes like me? What the union could do and what I could do to change the situation?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
and
you for
the last
question.
question of the day is for number 27, please. For this round. In the afternoon, you can ask more questions, please.
Hello, my name is Hermione Simeforidou, and I will be talking Greek.
You're talking Greek.
My question has to do more with information. I have observed that we are thinking that maybe the issue of gender equality has already been solved, that so many steps have been made towards the right direction that the problem is solved. However, this results in young people being less interested on this issue. How can we show to the world that although important steps have been taken, the problem has not been solved and it affects the entire planet?
Thank you so much for your time and for this last round of answers.
Yes, I suppose it's quite logical to say that as you start to achieve gender equality, people might become less interested in it because a lot has been done already. The problems perhaps get less worse, let's say, or if not better, and then it becomes less of a priority. Well, yeah, that's fair enough. I suppose that is a good thing in some ways. It is a problem around the world, and the EU is good at gender equality in some ways, and that could provide a model for other countries, but we also have to acknowledge that we are a long way still from gender equality, as we've already heard today. So you're quite right. The European Union, for example, has a so-called Gender Action Plan. We're on the 3rd edition. This governs how we work with countries and regions around the world. We try to ensure that, for example, if we have an aid program, then it doesn't discriminate against women, but more importantly, that it tries to increase gender equality, either as a primary or secondary aim. So we have various benchmarks like this. We talk about gender mainstreaming, where the idea is that we should always bear in mind the potential impact of anything we do on men, on women, to try to make sure that things are balanced. The question regarding sport, yes, the EU is doing things. We pass resolutions which are not binding, which are not legislation, but which try to underscore, which try to encourage national governments and, importantly, these huge, quite powerful international sporting bodies to properly to fight against gender inequality. We have, for example, we had the European Commission coordinates a high-level group on gender equality in sport. In 2021, those are 15 very experienced individuals, and they have a series of recommendations, an action plan. I'll tell you the actual name so you can Google it. So towards more gender equality in sport, which was published in 2022. So there you have a series of recommendations which will hopefully will feed through into the actions of national governments and international sporting bodies. The fear about women dominating, I mean, I could say don't worry about it for the foreseeable future. Frankly, it will not happen at the current rate until, in terms of gender pay, until apparently 2060 on the current trajectory. So, but yes, it is actually a fear of quite a few men that women might dominate, and I think it would be interesting to analyse the basis of that fear and what would be the consequence. How would it look if women were dominant? Gender equality stops at equality, so that's for me the key issue, and it's not prescriptive. It doesn't mandate that you do anything in a way which is foreign to yourself. So it's really about just freedom and allowing each person to achieve what they should be able to achieve without being hindered by gender stereotypes, by these negative constraints. And I think that's the key message for me, at least. Don't worry less about women dominating, worry about those people who are often women, but also men who are constrained by these stereotypes, by these traditional, perhaps, attitudes which stop them being what they want to be.
Henry, and by the way, this gives me the occasion to remind you that feminism doesn't mean that women are dominating. Feminism means equal right for both. So because sometimes boys say, oh, you're a feminist. Everybody should be a feminist. It's half and half. Okay. Thank you so much for your additional time, Henry.
Indeed,
My pleasure.
And there are different feminisms. So, you know, you can also choose which side you're on.
We give a final word to Henry,
Exactly.
just to address again
Thank you very much, Andrea, for your time, your sharing your experience with us, your knowledge, and your insights also of how the European Parliament works. It has been very, very interesting. Do you have a final? Can you give us a final message, especially with regard to the European elections that are coming up? Now they're pretty much around the corner, less than 2 months. We have a lot of first-time voters here, hundreds of them. So, yeah, one last word to you.
Yes, well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's very interesting always to hear your questions. Some of what you are concerned about we are already doing. I think you can see the pages I have here, which is for my reference, but all of these documents I have strewn in front of me are publicly available. So follow politics. It's not enough to just vote. Have a look at what members are doing, what your governments are doing. Make sure that when they make a promise, they live up to that promise. And yes, that is about voting, but it is also more than just voting. Knowledge is power, and I think you have to get yourself informed. You have to figure out what is going on and how you can contribute, play your part. Thank you.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much. Give him
And
a
I hope
big
to see
round of
you here.
applause. He really did it. He hit it today. Absolutely. You understand that we can't take all questions today, but thank you to be so interested in and participating so much in this issue. And as Henry Vasung said, you can even write him an email to continue. This is what he made very clear today. He is not an elected member of the parliament. He is one person who's working for the parliament, but he would be very happy to share his knowledge with you and answer to your questions or helping you find the right documents. So do not hesitate to do this thing. Participation, information and participation.
Absolutely.
Sven, what's next?
Yes, so this concludes the sessions with the speakers. We hope it was enriching for you. It certainly has been for us, right, Annette?
Yes,
so,
absolutely. We learn always here.
Yeah, so I would like to take this opportunity now to tell you about the chance to visit this place here. Also to those who are watching us from online, the European Parliament is open free of charge all throughout the year to be visited here. As you can see and just saw, there was a group just joining us, then leaving. Constantly there's a visitors tribune. You can bring people here all throughout the year. And then also back home in your countries, we have so-called Europa experiences. They are usually in the center of the capital, but then, for example, in Germany, there's also 2 arms terms, one in Munich and one in Bonn, from the European Commission, where you can also step by, and then, of course, in Berlin. And so, so you are very much welcome to visit the Parliament all throughout the year, also outside of the EUROSCOLA, of course.
Absolutely, and I love that you quote the ancient capital of Germany. There used to be Bonn, today it's Berlin.
Voila.
So to give you an idea
changed.
what you can see and even show to other people who want to know how it works here and what is this building, let's watch together a little virtual visit of the European Parliament. Video.
I mean, this video together with the music, it really gives you goosebumps, doesn't it, in a way? If that doesn't encourage you to visit, for those who are joining us here from online, I don't know what can.
European goosebumps, I love this.
European goosebumps, there you go. So by the way, Europe Day is also, as we are talking about visiting the European Parliament, on the 27th of April, just one day after our last EUROSCOLA for this season. And if you're passing by Strasbourg, don't hesitate to come and visit the Parliamentarium and discover here plenty of permanent and temporary exhibitions. And now let's talk about an event that we have already a little bit addressed earlier, which is determining the future of Europe for the next 5 years to come.
Absolutely, of course, Sven is talking about the elections. But first, just let's remind you that the European Parliament is the only institution of the three main institutions you can vote directly for. The European Commission you can't vote for. The European Council you can't vote for. So this is the only one to make your voice count. Stay curious, inform yourself, spread the world around, and go to vote on this middle of June.
Exactly. Every vote counts. So the European elections are among the largest transnational elections in the world, and they are held every 5 years. We just heard currently there are 705 members of the European Parliament. After the next elections in June, it will be 720 members of the European Parliament. And for many of you, it will be the first time to go to the polls. So remember, the choice you will make is influencing legislation on this continent for years to come.
Yes, and it is so much more easy to just say, oh, they don't like politics, they don't listen to me, they don't address the issue I want. I mean, this is up to you to make it. Henry said it so well. Write to your constituents, to your local governments, to your national governments. Write an email to your MEP from your country to say, I want you absolutely to talk about this or to make a proposition of law about this. This is how democracy works. And dear EUROSCOLA members, voting is a fundamental right and a democratic exercise. There are two things. I mean, there are some countries, for example, Italy, they do not do this anymore. They made the vote obligated. You had to vote, otherwise you were against the law. It is to force people to go to the ballot and to put their voices inside. This is not really the rule right now in Europe, but you know what's happened if you don't go to vote. Somebody else will decide about your future. So we hope that this EUROSCOLA session helped you a little bit to get better informed, to have more information, and to understand how important information is to do good participation.
All right, and now let's go on Slido, where we can see if you will. We will see a question in a moment, which is that: will you use your vote for the European elections this year, from 6th to 9th of June?
Okay, of course, yes. Who would like to go to vote? Who can't? Who maybe goes maybe? Or who do not want to go to vote? You have still 30 more seconds to answer. We give you the possibility to make up your mind.
And while we are voting, maybe you can all lift your hands if you are eligible to vote. Doesn't mean that you necessarily have to speak,
who is the age of vote here in the hemicycle? Age of voting?
Eligible. Yeah.
I would say little minority today. The most of you seems to be under the age of 18.
I'd say a third, yeah? Pretty much, maybe.
I felt it is, half maybe.
Half, all right. Well,
okay.
That's pretty much what the poll says. So.
Exactly. Yes, as I felt the half of the people in the semi-cycle camp. So,
observed.
of course, if you can't vote because you don't have the age, this all is valuable for you for your next local, national, and the next European election in 5 years. Yes, answers was 38%. This is great. There are some maybes and some no's. I would love that a maybe or a no explain us why. If there's anybody who would like to give some thoughts into this. It's not a punishment at all, but who voted no or maybe? Would you like to express yourself? Is there anybody who would give some arguments to his choice? Doesn't look like it. It is not a shame. I mean, you can do whatever you want in life. But okay, you do not want to explain it, fine.
And there's also an overlap with no
so we
and
go to
those
the next
who cannot
question.
vote
We have a
yet,
second one, I think so, no?
Yes, exactly. So we want to know from you, did today's EUROSCOLA change your view on Europe? So let's see. And you again vote on Slido, yes, no, or maybe you have no opinion.
Exactly. By the way,
let us know.
Knowing that your EUROSCOLA day is just in the middle of it, there's the whole afternoon. You will still have a lot of input and to be here to get more information, ask more questions. Okay, it's open. So
for those who are joining
this is wonderful. Definitely the majority of you feels better informed or more involved in Europe right now.
At least it changed their view.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is why this EUROSCOLA program exists, and why it's so important also for Madame Metsola. We heard in the very beginning.
Anybody wants to say in what way it changed their view? Just one of you, maybe. Let's see.
Somebody we didn't hear yet, maybe.
Okay,
go ahead.
4. Yeah. Okay. All right.
It changed because we saw that they care about us, about our opinion. It doesn't matter that we are young, but they show us that they care about us, about our opinion, and they can do that they can.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you very well got it. And it's absolutely right. And Mr. Papadimoulis is not a young vice president, and he definitely cares about youth and about women in particular. Anybody else who would explain? Yes, please. 160. Explain us why your opinion changed, please. 160. It will come.
Is it on? Okay, first of all, I'm from the Netherlands, and excuse my voice.
I don't necessarily have a negative view of Europe, but I do have to say that I've noticed a bit of a lack of nuance. I feel like most of the answers you're kind of expecting us to give are very left-winged, and I don't think that's an accurate depiction of the entirety of Europe, because I know for a fact that there are a lot of conservatives and a lot of right-wing people, and I feel like today we've mostly discussed left-winged ideas and ideologies.
So you voted...
This is very important. I don't know, Annette, if you want to respond to that.
So you voted yes or no? I don't understand. So your opinion changed with all this, as you mentioned it, left side input. Interesting. Yeah.
And
Sven?
so the thing is that, of course, when it comes to our experts, they will reflect on what the European Parliament is doing generally. As you heard, there's no sides taken. When it comes to the Vice President, of course, he is a member of a political party, and we do not always invite the same members of the Parliament from the same political party. There's a whole range. But just for you today, probably you got that opinion very much because the Vice President, Mr. Papadimoulis, is a member of the left-wing party, the most left-wing party in the European Parliament. So yes, that is probably your impression must have been very correct.
And because it is so important that you vote, maybe it's also important that you know that a lot of populist parties in Europe who proposing their programs, they propose a program with much less Europe. So this is, of course, EUROSCOLA. It's a program from the European Union. And, of course, European Union is promoting the European Union and even more Europe to make a better politics in the European way. So it is also one of the reasons what you called left ideas. I would say it's pro-European ideas as they exist right now.
And then we have a simulation in the afternoon where we are simulating the different opinions.
And you can absolutely express other
depending on which group you are in, you will simulate the different arguments. Exactly. So let's move on.
Let's move on. We have another video to show. In a few years, maybe one of you will be here, a European parliamentarian. Who knows? Maybe you will become an MEP. What's absolutely great. And so let's see the video together, EU.
There's something I want to tell you. It's important. It's about something invisible that truly touches all our lives. It's all around us, yet quite often we do not notice it enough, or only when it disappears, when it's too late. It's a very unique place, a place where everyone is welcome, no matter the team you support, or the clothes you wear. A place where you can speak freely without going to jail. A place where you don't die for a strand of hair. A place where the future isn't in only one man's hands. Where you can kiss whoever you want. Where we can feel safe and take care of each other. And where our kids would want to live too. A place where we unite against adversity and decide on our future together. It's a precious place. It's called democracy. Together, let's keep it strong. Join together.eu for democracy.
Yes, sir. A wonderful address to everybody who would like to have more information. And I just wanted to add to our exchange before. Europe is promoting democracy in Europe. This is it. And EUROSCOLA has always one specialist, a person who works, who is a working member of the European Parliament, like Mr. Henry Vasson. And the other person is, of course, a person with a political opinion, as we told you in the beginning. So today we had a in the left camp, let's say, representative, and so he talked about his opinion. But as you see, 705 seats and members, all kinds of voices are heard in this European Parliament, all voices built together Europe.
Voila. And speaking of voices in Europe, we just saw a wonderful video together EU about the platform Together EU, or Gemeinsam für in German, Ensemble EU in French. The platform exists in all languages, all official languages in all of the member states, but it's a country and transnational platform. It brings together people, which are a lot of them are European volunteers. Then some of you are already familiar maybe with the concept of the European Parliament ambassador schools. There are a lot of students who are joining from those schools as well. And it's for you to really have to continue the debate and speak with like-minded or other-minded people about the future of Europe and get involved. There are many events there. Just enroll. Here's the hashtag. You can scan it with your phone, sign up, and then you can also, I think, sign up and get reminded when the European elections are coming up, so you get a reminder to vote.
Exactly, because we are 5 minutes late. It was rare with us, Sven, but there were so many interesting questions of your side. Just know that you can, of course, follow EUROSCOLA team on Facebook and Instagram. We will say goodbye with just the last participation questions, and then together we will listen at the very end to some music. Would you like to say the participation numbers?
Yes, I think if I'm not mistaken, there's one element that we.
Yes, I thought we finished with this.
Okay. Well, I don't have the participation numbers yet.
So we first of all, to give a nice final point of this, let's stand up all together, if you don't mind, and we will listen very solemnly to the European anthem. You know, of course, which one this is. Ode à la joie. The sound of Europe.
So this concludes our EUROSCOLA morning session. It's coming to an end now. A session marked by your commitment and your will to improve the future of Europe. I can only congratulate you on your participation. Now I have the numbers. We had more than 1,100 active participants. And 144 questions and proposals on Slido, so you have been very, very active today. Unfortunately, 2.5 hours, as we can see, is not enough time to discuss all of your ideas, but it's really great to see you all so motivated and inspired.
Absolutely, and because we are late, we just say thank you, goodbye, and don't forget to vote for those who can. Thank you.
Go vote.
Just please stay at your seats. So the yellow stickers, you can go. The yellow.